Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're really excited to reconnect with all of you for part 2 of the Therapist Heal Thyself webinar. And today we're going to start off with Dr. Bridget Hannahan. She will be talking about positive reframing and emotional acceptance and how it can help with some of our own personal healing work with using this tool. And I will also help to post some of her polls, as she'll also get information from all of you in the past couple of years about your current struggles. Because as we know, we all are therapists and we help others on their healing journey, but we are also human beings who have also suffered and struggled, and also from time to time can use assistance and help in our own suffering and our own journey. And without further ado, I will pass it on to Bridget, and just let me know when you need me to post the polls, Bridget. Bridget, you're on mute right now, so I'm not sure if you're sharing something.
Sorry about that. I got that whole mistake out of the way there. So thank you everyone for being here. I really appreciate it. And just a little bit about me. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm practicing in the very southern tip of Alabama, so on the Gulf Coast. And I've been licensed since 1995, but I worked for many years as a pediatric consultant and worked really part-time for quite a while. And then I formed my private practice in 2015, and I started team training in 2019. It was in Atlanta in November of 2019, and Tyann, I believe, was there as an assistant at that point. So, and I'm currently a level 3 TEAM-CBT therapist, and this work has really just transformed my practice and my life in so many ways. That's why I'm excited to share it with you guys. And really, since 2020, my practice has kind of exploded. I don't know if some of you have experienced that too, the increased demand. And so a lot of why I'm doing this today is to become a trainer so that I can train more people in my area that can do the type of work that we do with TEAM, because I found it to be extremely effective. And I think that's why the demand is high in my practice. So thank you all for being here. Again, just grateful, Tyann, to have this opportunity to present. And it really was a dream come true for me when Tyann advertised this training for me to be able to participate. And thank you all for being here too. A little bit on the personal level about me. My husband and I had 3 children in 4.5 years, which is about as much fun as you would think it would be. Fun, but also a lot of hard work. And now that they're all young adults, we're in what we consider kind of the 4th quarter of our parenting. And that is a fun stage. So that's my family there. And here's a picture of my husband and I kind of in the second half of our marriage, the second half of our lives. And we're empty nesters now. And I'll talk a bit more about that in my personal work that I'm going to demonstrate with you as well. So today, my topic is outcome resistance in our work and in our personal life. And I'm actually going to address it first in our personal lives. And I think that is a good way to organize our priorities, is to kind of do our personal work first, because really we're the best tool and instrument that we have as therapists. And when we're doing well and we're emotionally healthy, then we're able to provide better care for our clients. But when we're struggling, it's really a lot more difficult. So I think kind of putting the priority first on our personal wellness, and then how does TEAM and how does outcome resistance affect our professional lives as well. So just an overview of what we'll do today. I will talk about the rationale for personal work. I'm going to do a poll on that, and hopefully that will inform the rationale so I can see what you guys are dealing with in order to know kind of what would be helpful for you guys. And then we'll talk about how to use the positive reframe on a personal level. And then we'll address the good reasons that we don't address outcome resistance in our practice, and then why it can be a game changer for us when we do. And then I'll share the mistakes that I've made in handling outcome resistance over the years. Sorry, I'm just switching to slideshow view. I think that might work a little bit better for me. Okay, So what I hope for you today is to just get a little bit better understanding of outcome resistance. And I hope that you'll feel really supported and encouraged in your personal life and in your work. And maybe you'll fine tune your use of the positive reframe. And I hope you'll feel really encouraged to use it personally. In fact, we're going to do that together today. And then I hope you're just inspired to really do some personal work for your own self-care to kind of keep your saw sharpened that way. So we have our first poll now, and I really just want to check in with all of you, see how you're doing. I know we check in with our clients all the time, but maybe people don't ask about us as often, or maybe don't know what questions to ask with us. So we're going to do the poll, and I'm actually doing it too, so I should know about how long it will take for people to finish. That'll be good. My poll disappeared, but oh, there it is. Oh, we have our results. Yay, this is exciting. So I hope I can continue to look at these as I manage my technology. Oh, wow. So is this right, Tyann? 100% of us have seen increased demand? Wow, I didn't think it would be quite that high. Wow, that's just stunning. Okay.
Hold on, Bridget. I saw now that only one person participated in the poll. Were you all able to see the poll?
Yeah, I was able to see it, Tyann, but but it disappeared, so I didn't finish answering all the poll questions.
It was on there and then it disappeared. That's so strange.
Yeah, I think the same thing happened for me, Tyann.
I didn't get to finish.
Let me relaunch it and see if that helps.
I didn't get to finish.
So just to let you know, our responses will be in aggregate. They're not going to be shared individually, of course. So just so you know that. Thank you, Tyann. Sorry for that. That's all.
I'm not quite sure what happened. Still saying 0 out of 42 is participating. Okay, now it's increasing.
Okay.
2 out of 42. Okay. Okay, the number's increasing, so it seems like it's staying for everyone now. I didn't do anything different. I'm not quite sure what happened.
Okay, looking forward to seeing you.
It's still 100% though, Bridget, on the increase.
Wow. Okay, so I guess that is affirming in a way to know that.
I'm still doing the survey here.
Okay.
Yeah, you can continue to do the survey, and then I'll close it when we get about like 70% participation.
So I'll just talk for a minute while others are completing theirs, since we do, at least so far, have 100% of us feeling this increased demand. It really, I think, is going to increase more and more, just because the research is starting to show that medication is not as effective as we might like it to be. And so I think a lot of people are starting to recognize that therapy might be more the way to go, even though they've already been, in psychiatric care at some point. And also just, I think since the pandemic, we have just seen such increased demand. It's been across all age groups. I work some with children and teens and young adults, and that group certainly has seen a lot more issues. And I think it's really across the board, so makes sense for us. for me personally, a big reason why I'm doing this training with Tyann and learning how to be a CE provider is because I really, I felt so stressed with the demand. And I just feel, I think we all, as therapists, we go into this field because we want to help people. And when you get lots of requests and emails and phone calls, then it really is, you feel bad that you can't help everyone. And so I really want to contribute, as I move forward with my career to other people being able to provide this kind of care. Okay, so not 100%, but someone found that there's a decrease, and that's always true that can happen. 17% of us, the demand has stayed the same. And for the majority of us, though, 79%, the demand has increased for our services. And let's see how we feel about that. Some of us feel excited about it. I know I do. I always like to have new clients, and it is exciting. But only maybe a couple of people have said that it hasn't affected anything because their demand for their services is still the same. But a majority of us feel stressed by that. Some of us even feel overwhelmed, burdened, or guilty, as I do, that I have to turn people away. It's not a good feeling for me. It's something I really struggled with. And in the past few years, I felt more isolated. Yeah, a lot of us have felt more isolated. Some of us have not seen any change, and some of them felt more connected. So it just goes to show that even though we may all be in the same boat, that it can affect us in different ways. So let's see. A lot of us have had sleep difficulties that affect mood or performance. I can certainly relate to that myself. A good number of us have experienced depression and relationship issues or family problems during this time. Some of us have anxiety that impairs our ability to function. And a large proportion of us have had procrastination that affects the work or self-esteem. That's something I've also struggled with, particularly as it relates to my work, is that requests pile up. It becomes really hard to make time to do that. And then a few of us have a diagnosed or diagnosable psychological disorder. That may be something that we had before this, but something that is part of the picture that we're working with. And a good number of us have stress-related or stress-exacerbated conditions. And a few of us say, hey, health is better than it's ever been. And then there was one person, or a few people actually just didn't want to share that information. And that's something that I completely understand. And we'll talk about that in just a bit more, kind of what the obstacles are for us there. So most of us, at least occasionally, all of us, at least occasionally, find ourselves thinking or worrying about a case outside of work hours. And so that's just important for us to recognize that our work does affect our emotional health and our well-being. It's important for us to think about that. And let's see, I think we were able to select multiples for this, so I'm sure we do a variety of things, but a lot of us talk with colleagues informally. A good number of us are seeking consultation when we have a case that we're bothered by, and that's really a good thing to see. Fair number are praying or meditating, exercising, seeking support from friends and family, and a good number of us are actually doing personal therapy or self-help work. I do that myself, and we'll talk about that in a bit. These are the obstacles, though, that we do have to seeking help. A lot of us say, and I agree, it's awkward professionally. If you do have people in your area that can help you, you may just not want them to know your personal struggles. And that's something that is certainly understandable. And then other therapists are often as busy as we are. They don't have time. Maybe we don't have time. So yeah, so this is really good. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Okay, so it sounds like really, we share a lot in common in terms of what's difficult for us. We're really taking cases home in a lot of instances, and it, really bothers us outside of our work hours. And many of us have sleep difficulties and other issues. But we do have a variety of supports. I'm happy to see that a lot of us are seeking consultation. Some of us are doing personal work and therapy. So all in all, it sounds like we're doing pretty well, though we may be still feeling somewhat isolated. So I would like to talk for a bit about why we want to do the positive reframe, what's good about it, what's the rationale behind it. I find it particularly helpful for situations that we really can't change. Grief is one. Grief and loss is a great instance for the positive reframe. Tyann did a course on it for grief, and it's just been really a game changer for me in terms of how to handle someone who has grief and trauma by using that personal positive reframe with them. So in terms of what we're thinking about here, I like to talk about essential emotions versus meta emotions. And our essential emotions are very natural and they're usually self-limiting. So if we're really sad, we cry. Oftentimes we feel better. That's why we have that expression, I had a good cry. It does make us feel better. Research even shows that in our tears, there are stress hormones. So we can actually see that we're actually ridding ourselves of some of the stress just by crying. So that's an example of a self-limiting essential emotion. Also, when we're feeling frustrated, we may naturally just kind of step away from whatever it is that is frustrating us for a bit, and then we come back to it fresh, and that makes it kind of self-limiting there. But many more times, we actually pile other emotions on top of our essential emotions, and we really make it harder on ourselves that way. A lot of it has to do with the cognitive distortions that we throw in, but also just in an emotional sense, we can start to feel, really angry with ourselves for being angry. We can feel down on ourselves that we're feeling sad. We can be worried that we're anxious. So there's all of this emotion piled on top of the essential emotion that can really weigh us down. And as therapists, we may be even more prone to something called emotional perfectionism, which is the idea that we really shouldn't have negative feelings. And sometimes as therapists, maybe we feel like, okay, yeah, we have negative emotions, but we should know exactly how to handle them, right? And we shouldn't be bogged down by those. So that piles on a layer of kind of judgment and shame that we have. And that's also part of that picture of us not wanting to seek help from other professionals when we do that. So this is a picture of me, my avatar, technically, adding insult to the injury, whatever the injury may be for me that day when I'm feeling moody with a chance of depression. So you may have found yourself saying some of these things to yourself, and you can certainly recognize all the distortions that are there. But those are some of the things that really make us feel worse when we're judging ourselves and piling on top of our emotions. So at the end of all of that rumination, what do I have to show for it? I have this really high stress level. That's actually a picture of my watch one day when I looked at my stress level. Of course, that led me to think, oh, I really got to get a hold of myself now. I'm stressing myself out. But what can I do when I'm in this spiral that I'm in? I found that using the positive reframe in situations like this can really increase my self-awareness, and it increases my self-acceptance. And I really see it as kind of like peeling away that layer of those piled on emotions. And it just leaves us with the essential situation that we have. So this will just be kind of the outline for our positive reframe. Some of you may have David Burns's tool that is set up for the positive reframe, and that's great. If you have that, you can pull that out and use it. If you don't, this is something you can just create a Word document for yourself and just have this ready. So if you want to just kind of jot down these basic categories here, this is what we'll be doing in just a moment. And I'm going to show you my own personal reframe first, and then we'll have an opportunity for each person to kind of privately work on their own positive reframe. And I'll show this again, but just to kind of let you know that that's the format that we'll be using. So a couple of tips on the positive reframe. What we're not doing is we're not talking about what's good about the situation. That would be an empathy error. And maybe people have done that with you before, where they've said, oh, this is really good because X, Y, and Z, or maybe this is for the best, but that's not what we're doing, but we're highlighting the good in the person that exists, even though they're in a difficult situation. The positive reframe is not attempting to change or reduce the emotion, but it often does work paradoxically to do just that. And that's sort of the way I've mentioned it. We're just peeling off that extra layer of those meta emotions that it will feel like a decrease in emotion. And again, we're not saying that everything will be okay, but what we're doing is we're showing that the person has resilient qualities and values that are visible during this difficult situation. So it's not saying everything's going to be okay. It's just that you have these strengths and you have these values that you can maintain throughout a difficult situation. And the positive reframe isn't really a tool that kind of helps us solve problems, but sometimes because it's peeling away that extra layer and it takes away a lot of the emotional baggage, it can sometimes reveal a path forward. And that's something that I noticed in my positive reframe, and we'll talk about that very shortly. So nothing to make you feel better on an afternoon, but a beautiful dog. And this is my beautiful dog, Jake. And he was with us for about 10 years. He was my daughter's puppy. We had a tradition when our children were 12 years old, we would get them a puppy and they got to choose what kind of puppy they would get, and they trained them and all of that. And she did that, and she did a beautiful job with him. He was really pretty much everyone's favorite dog. And unfortunately, he got lymphoma. He got very, very sick, and he passed away in February of this year. So it was really sad, and I'll talk to you about kind of what that was like for me. I felt very sad and really grieving and heavy, and that's not, we've had lots of animals over the years, and I had never really felt that way about the other dogs. I would feel sad, but this just felt like a deep grief, and it was very strong, and it really weighed me down. And I started to heap those judgments on myself. Why am I feeling this way? I've never felt this way before. I need to just get over this. What's the big deal? All of those things. So I finally decided to sit down and do a positive reframe about Jake and my feelings about him. And that's what you're going to see now. So I asked myself, in this situation, does this emotion help me in some way? And oftentimes with the positive reframe, we really focus more on the positive values and personality qualities. But in my case, with this situation, it turns out that the advantages were actually a lot stronger. And I would never have thought that there were any advantages. But just by asking this, I learned some things. So the emotion obviously was my sadness, my grief. I identified that it helped me empathize with my daughter because it was her dog, and she was actually away at college when he died, and she was, of course, terribly sad about it, but it helped me really empathize with her. And then it also helped me connect with my husband because he was really sad. Jake was his buddy. They would sit out on the porch after work and share a snack, and so that was a way for us to connect through this grief about Jake. And then I did identify some positive values that I have and traits, but those were less important to me than this last advantage that I noticed, is that it really helped me tune in that this was a change in my life stage. So when our daughter graduated in 2019, she went far away to college, and then she came back like a boomerang with the other kids during the pandemic. And so my husband and I didn't really have a chance to sort of notice that we're having an empty nest. And when Jake died, that's when we really, for me anyway, it marked that end of those child rearing years, and that was really a lot of what I was sad about. Of course, I was sad to lose him, but also just like it was a role change for me. It was a big loss. And this is just kind of a reminder, when we do our positive reframe, some of the obvious ones for sadness are, we've lost something of value. It could be a valued role. It could be a relationship, it could be both. We could have lost an opportunity, and that may make us sad, or we may have had an affront to our self-esteem and something that really hurt our view of ourselves. So here we go back again to the blank form. And I hope you all take the opportunity to just think back, or maybe right now, maybe you have an emotion right now that you're struggling with, and just go ahead and write down what that feeling is. And maybe there are multiple ones you're struggling with, so go ahead and write them all down. And then you'll ask yourself, is there any way that this feeling is helping me? Or any way that it could help me? And then the fact that I feel this way in this situation at this time, what does that show about me that's really good? Does it highlight any strong values that I have? Does it show anything good about my personality? Who I am as a person? What is it saying about me? Obviously, the advantages and values will vary depending on the situation. And of course, depending on the person. We can just get a show of hands, the folks I'm looking at, if you're finished with this or you still need time. Looks like we maybe need a little bit more time. Okay, I see a couple of people have raised their hand. I'm hoping that means that you're done. And if everyone can do that when you're done, that'd be great. Okay, see a few more hands. Excellent. Thank you guys for that feedback. And if you're not finished, I encourage you to just keep thinking about it. We'll be talking kind of in general terms about the positive reframe for a few moments to give people a chance to finish if they haven't yet. I'm going to go forward a bit and give folks a little bit more time to finish this. I'm just going to the end of some things I had for extra. So if we're dealing with anger, sometimes it can be hard. Anger is definitely the most neglected, ignored emotion that we have. But usually I find that the purpose of anger is a protection. So you may ask yourself, what value do I have that this anger is protecting in the situation? And then in terms of frustration, it usually shows that we put forth a lot of effort on something, but we're aware that we're struggling with it. And a lot of times it shows determination and a work ethic. A lot of times, if we look at what we're moving toward, working toward, then we'll see where the value is. And the fact that we do continue when we're frustrated shows a great deal of commitment. So those are some positive things we may find with that. And even despair, we can find positives for it. It's more so an advantage that it can motivate us to seek help if we're feeling discouraged or despairing. And sometimes these feelings can cause us to give up on a relationship or a situation that really isn't serving us. And even though we feel discouragement and despair in the moment, that it actually helps us to discern that that's not right for us. And other times it's not a permanent change, but it just helps us to take a break before we try again. So I'm going to move back up to discussion, and I hope you guys will either unmic or you can unraise your hands now, and then you can raise them again if you want to talk and share your thoughts on this positive reframe exercise. And here I'm just more curious about kind of what it felt like for you to do this, not so much that you want to, if you want to share, you can, but certainly don't feel like you have to share that. Did anyone find it really difficult to do this? Found it kind of easy. So I'm seeing hands raised, and I'm not sure if that means that you want to talk, but I'll just call on you and see anyway. So I'm seeing SJ. Is that someone who wants to share something?
Oh, hello. I just raised my hand to show that I finished.
Okay.
I didn't really.
Well, thank you.
I thought that's what you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else that wants to comment or discuss anything about this exercise? Yeah, Ricardo?
I find it hard to go from emotions to how does it help, especially when you are still in that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the definitions that you give for frustration. That kind of help a little bit. Yeah, so it's like, it's easy to kind of think of how you feel about something, but how do you go from that and how does it help you? That transition is kind of hard.
It really is, because, you know, we're talking about negative emotions. So of course they feel bad, and it seems like there's no advantage at all. And I certainly felt that with my situation. I couldn't feel, you know, it would be so much easier, I'm thinking, if I just didn't feel these feelings, right? But when we kind of peel away and really accept the possibility that there might be something good, then we actually can open up to that in some ways. But sometimes there really isn't an advantage. And so we don't have to find an advantage of the feeling. And sometimes though, when we look at the values, that can also open it up for us in a different way. But yeah, I think there are times when we just don't see an advantage, and that's okay too. Thank you for sharing that. And Don, am I seeing your hand raised that you'd like to speak?
Yeah, I liked doing this exercise. I liked identifying a variety of emotions, and then when you went on, I was able to definitely add despair and frustration. I never thought too much about how it helps me, other than I'm motivated to want to change this dynamic that I've identified that's associated with the emotions. And I appreciated identifying values about me. I never really considered that before, you know, for myself. So yeah, it's helpful.
I'm so glad to hear that, Don, and I appreciate what you've shared, because those are some difficult emotions when you talk about despair, especially. But you're right, it does motivate you to change the situation, doesn't it? Because it just feels that bad. And then you looking at the values is so important, because you're the same person when you're in a difficult situation or when you're in a happy situation, and to recognize, wow, sometimes I feel these bad feelings because of my values, but I wouldn't let go of those for anything. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, one thing I'll just add too is that I'm not unfamiliar with the particular dynamic that's associated with difficult emotions: fear, sadness, anxious, dread, ashamed, despair, frustration, and it definitely motivated to want to change. And I just thought, now that's a good thing. I'm not sure exactly how to do that, but maybe I should just slow down and kind of like sit with this for a little bit at least before trying to figure out a quick solution, which is what I'd like.
I'm like you too, Don. I like a quick solution as well, but you're right. Sitting with it is good, and I think what this tool does is it allows us to really tolerate those negative emotions to tolerate, not just tolerate ourselves, but we actually honor ourselves and we recognize our dignity in this difficult situation. And I think there's a lot of value in that, to just say, yes, I'm here and this is really tough, but I'm still valuable. And these are the things that make me valuable. These are the things that, make my life meaningful. I'd love to hear more from you guys, but I want us to move on and get to some of the more material, and maybe if other people have comments at the end, we can add those. This is a kind of just a blank personal mood log, and this is like a Word document that I made. It works really well for me. I just put the upsetting event at the top, and if you guys remember, you want to include as much detail as you can about the setting and when you're sitting down to do this. And for me, a lot of times it can be very revealing if it's like, oh, it's the end of the day and I got up at 5 a.m. and then it's like, oh, okay. I can see like context for my situation as well. That helps me a lot. But I just put the emotions on the left side of the page. Note the strength from 0 to 100%, how strong those feelings are before I do the log. And then I have a spot right there to do the positive reframe. And then based on the positive reframe, I set my goal of how much of this feeling do I think I need to hold on to in order to honor my values, in order to give a nod to my personality qualities. And then sometimes even before I get through all of the emotions, I write down all of the hot and heavy negative thoughts, and just the ugliest stuff, just put it out there on the page, as bad as it can be. And then how strongly do I believe each one of those negative thoughts? And then what are the cognitive distortions that I notice in those thoughts? And unfortunately, this doesn't include those, but if you have a cheat sheet or if you have one of David Burns's books, then you can identify those. And then I come up with a positive thought that the necessary condition for our positive thoughts on the mood log is that it be 100% true. And so sometimes I include some of the things that are just like, yeah, I feel this way. This is how I feel right now. That can be part of your positive thought, even though it's a negative feeling. And then you do want to add something that brings your mood up a bit, or that broadens the lens so that you see some positive that you hadn't looked at before, especially if your distortion is something like mental filter, all or nothing, or overgeneralization. Then you can kind of have a hint of like, okay, maybe I need to look at the bigger picture. What are some good things that are going on in my life, even though this is happening right now? And then I rate how strong I believe that. And again, if I don't believe it 100%, it's not a sufficient positive thought. So I have to go back to the drawing board and change that thought. And I do this with clients too, and I'll say, what makes it not be 100%? And there'll be something like, well, I had a client the other day, and she said the positive thought was, I'm going to do this. And then she was like, well, I don't know if I'm going to do this. It's like, okay, but that's not 100%. And so then the thought was, I want to do this. So anyway, that's how that rolls. And then, the proof is in the pudding. Does it make you feel better? And so you go back to your original negative thought and how much do you believe that? How many of you guys do mood log as a regular part of your work with clients or personally? Patricia, you do? Good. So if you haven't used it before, I highly recommend it. For me personally, and Jeff, you have, great. For me, I will often, when I'm upset with my husband, I used to just, take him all of my hot, irrational thoughts and I would give those to him. And then he would either give them back to me, his own, or he would withdraw, and then he'd get more of my hot negative thoughts, poor man. So that obviously wasn't very helpful. And what I started doing is to just do a mood log first. And I would say, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put all of my ugly thoughts down on paper and all of this stuff. And then I take it to him after I'm finished with the mood log and I say, you know, this is how I've been feeling and what I've thinking about it right now. And that has really helped me tremendously, just the personal work itself, but also sharing that with him because when I came up with my positive thoughts, they still had some of the negative there. So if I was very angry with him, there was probably a good reason. And so I would note that in the positive thought because it has to be 100% true. And then I would also say, so I might say something like, well, it's true that it would have been better if he had called me to tell me he was going to be late, but he doesn't always do that. You know, this many times he does do that, but this time he didn't, and it really upset me or whatever. What that does is it gives him actionable items, right? Like, so, okay, even though she went through all of these thoughts and now we still have this thing that like, this is the problem, like this is something that, you know, needs to change in our relationship. So I highly recommend that on a personal level. We already talked about the positive values. And oh my gosh, are we at the end? I don't know. Did we miss something? Anyway, so I was going to say, wait, I left some things out. My goodness, let me go back. I left out all my mistakes. Is that an accident or what? So this is my sad therapy room. And this is when I first started to practice, and I just wasn't doing a very good job. I think I gave my clients a lot of empathy, but they weren't probably making a lot of progress. And if they had outcome resistance, I didn't really, you know what to do with that. So my first mistake was just to ignore the resistance and just kind of play it safe. And this really made me feel pretty deflated and kind of like an imposter because I was just kind of really sitting there and listening to kind of the same things over and over again, and kind of week after week and month after month. We either would discuss the same things or we would discuss new things in the same way. And so for me, this was kind of like a not very happy time in my practice. And I actually would get kind of burned out, and I would either reduce my hours back or I would think about closing my practice. And so TEAM has really changed all of that for me. I really enjoy my work a lot now. And as far as how it affected my client, I think it probably, Dr. Matt May says, no emotion goes unexpressed. So if I'm sitting here feeling frustrated, I'm sure that I communicated that to my client in some way. And that couldn't be good for the therapy. So another thing that happens when we ignore the outcome resistance is we may actually, in subtle ways, blame the client. And if you think about that old joke, how many therapists does it take to change a light bulb, right? Y'all know the punchline? Yeah, Ricardo knows. Only one, but the light bulb has to really want to change. And so if you think about that, of course, like all good jokes, it reflects an essential truth. It has to be the client's decision to change. But when we're saying that, we're also sort of copping ourselves out, but we're also, you know, kind of accepting the status quo, like, well, they'll change or they won't change, you know, kind of. And so, so that's a way that it can hurt us when we ignore that. This is actually a photo from one of my daughter's basketball games when she was in high school. They were tied and there was less than 1 second left in the game. And sometimes that's how this feels to me in therapy, when we just kind of gone around and around and we haven't really gotten anywhere. The client is saying they want change, but then they don't, and then there's all these problems. And so I found myself sometimes at the end of a session and actually giving more time to the client so that I can help and do something. But that leaves me feeling drained, and it doesn't leave me enough time to write my notes or kind of just reflect and recharge for my next client. And when I'm working harder than my client is, I just end up feeling discouraged and depleted, and I don't think it benefits my clients at all. But sometimes also at the end of the hour, I end up cheerleading. And this is kind of what this might sound like to a client. Guys, look at the snow! Woo!
Colette and I are having a snow day, and it's supposed to snow even more tomorrow. We're gonna get a foot.
So did you see her face? Her roommate's face. This is my daughter, by the way. You know, how many times have you heard someone say, oh, look on the bright side. Oh, you should be so grateful. You have so many things, you know, going for you. Oh, it's probably for the best. We don't want to hear that. Those are empathy errors, right? But I've done that so many times with my clients. Oh, you're going to be fine. You know, especially as they're walking out the door, and you kind of feel like you want them to be fine. So you're sort of saying that. And that's kind of my second mistake that I've made.
Guys, look at the snow! Woo! Colette and I are having a snow day, and it's supposed to snow even more tomorrow. We're gonna get a foot.
Sorry, I didn't mean to show that again, but it does illustrate the point of like how bad it's like, no, it's too bright, leave me alone. Okay, so a painful mistake that I made, and I was reflecting on this and I realized I'm not sure I made this mistake with an actual client, though I probably did. But I remember when I was at that training in November of 2019 with Dr. David Burns, and I was in role play with another therapist. And I think we were supposed to be role playing the disarming technique. So if I remember right, the client was saying something like, you haven't helped me at all. I'm not getting any better, something like that. And so I was supposed to agree with the client and disarm them. And I used a you message. And I said, you know, you're right. You're not getting any better. And the person who was the other therapist in role play with me, they basically said, ouch, you know, that really hurt. And I was just, it was like a gut punch to me. I didn't realize that the way that I had said that was very blaming and not accepting responsibility as a therapist. And so that was kind of when I got hooked with TEAM. I had always really admired Dr. Burns' work and his philosophies, but that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I've probably been making a lot of errors. I have a lot of blind spots. This is just a snapshot of me as a therapist when this person was honest enough to tell me, wow, that really wasn't good. So those are some of the, so the mistake there would be confronting the client instead of confronting the resistance. And so we have so many tools in TEAM that help us to actually look at the resistance just on its own instead of, you know, telling the client, well, you're not willing to change or you're not sure. It's like, let them discover that for themselves. And that's such the beauty of it. And we will discuss this, but I feel like I left more things out, but that's okay. I'm just gonna let that be. So what happens though when the client, you know, they say they want to change something and then they kind of backtrack on it. And it's just, when you first hear that, oh, I really want to change this, I find it just so tempting to just jump right in and make suggestions or, you know, give them some insights. And that just really doesn't work well, because then I'm actually kind of going against their resistance, and then they give it back to me, right? And it's like, well, yeah, but, or the clue that I notice the most with my clients when they want to be polite is they'll say, maybe, and I always know that I've aroused their resistance that way. I've made too much of a suggestion or too much of an insight. So that's when I kind of pull back and actually help them look at their own resistance. The triple paradox, I believe Robyn's going to walk us through that. And it really is a technique that can really open up the outcome resistance and increase self-acceptance and really increase self-awareness as well. And it just frees us up to see our motivations for change. So I think I just want to open mic now and let people share their thoughts and questions. And
Bridget, I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on this outcome resistance when you said they want to change, then they backtrack. And how does this positive reframing address it in place of the mistakes that you had made?
Oh, great. Yeah, great question. Thank you. So I think we are all familiar with that dynamic, right? Where that yes, but, or maybe, you know, and we almost always have that in general when we want to change something. There's obviously a part of us that doesn't want to change, or we would have already done it. And it's certainly true of our clients in most cases. So the positive reframe really helps a person to identify with that part of them that doesn't want to change, and to realize what are the things that they're holding on to. So for example, if someone is grieving the loss of a loved one, and let's say they're really having a really difficult time, they're in a very complicated grief, and maybe it's been going on for many years. And if you do the positive reframe and you ask, what is it about this sadness, this deep grief? What is it showing us about your values, or about what advantages are there? So, and it could very well be true that, you know, the person feels that if they were to feel better, if they were not to feel this grief, this heaviness, then they would lose touch with their loved one. That is the connection that they feel with the person. So, and this also, the webinar that Tyann did on grief really talks about that as a solution for grief, is finding ways to stay connected to the loved one, even though you may be letting go of the intense grieving at some point. And that a lot of times is what holds people back. I'm not sure if I answered the question, so can you please let me know if that helps, or what other questions you might have. Ricardo, you had something?
Okay, so the client that told you, you write the exercise that says, oh, you're not helping me and I'm not getting better. How would you do it differently?
That's such a great question. Yeah. And at the time I had no clue. So I'm really glad you asked that, because I thought I was doing a really good job. So what you would do is you're going to disarm them, and you're going to agree with something. And what you're going to agree with is the hardest part, which is the part that is really hurting you as a therapist, where you're like, you're right, I really haven't helped you. And that takes a lot of like humbling of self to do that. And but that's the crucial part, is once you do that and you say, you know, you're absolutely right, I really haven't helped you, then you're sort of taking away, you're taking the blame, and then the client can elaborate on you know, how that's felt for them and what's going on with them. And really in TEAM, we really believe that if the client perceives that you're not helping, then indeed you're not helping. So even though we might think it's unfair, maybe we've tried a lot of things and they just haven't helped. But if we tune into what the client is saying, then we'll find out some more answers in terms of how to move forward. But at least if we disarm and say, yeah, you're right, I haven't helped you, and I feel really sad about that. I'm wondering, you know, if you can tell me more about that. Then we're asking them for that negative information about us. And then we'll get that in all likelihood, which is not fun, but we'll also be able to clear the air so that then we can begin to move forward together. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. What other questions do you guys have? So the other thing that the positive.
Sorry, but Bridget, can I ask one question?
Sure, okay.
Sorry, Donna, it took me a while. I was trying to formulate in my mind was how long did it take you to practice the skills and really kind of make them your own and integrate them the way you have? And the second question is, like, you know, well, one is how long did it take you, and then like what were the practicing things that you did? Did you practice with other team people every day or several times a week? Because you've really taken this knowledge deep now, so I'm curious to know how you learned it.
Yeah, well, I'm still constantly learning every day, and I think that's the key. And then, but I've done a lot of training. Every time Tyann has offered a training, I've done it and learned a lot from her. And then I also have taken trainings with other team therapists, and I did one-on-one training with Tyann to get ready for my level 3 exam. And then I also, once I made level 3, I did a consultation group that I was in every week for an hour and a half, I guess. And that was really humbling, because it's like, to me, the most difficult thing is working with other therapists, because you kind of don't have that veil to kind of protect you. You know, your clients, a lot of times, they don't necessarily know what you're supposed to be doing, but your other therapists really do. And so it's very humbling to kind of work with another therapist and they go, yeah, you know, that's kind of phony what you just said or whatever. And that's really been the most helpful for me, I think. The other thing I want to point out about the positive reframe before we close is that, you know, it's actually helping us set that goal. So let's say I feel 100% angry. And then I realize that because of my very important values, I don't really want to give up all of that anger. Maybe I'm content to stay 40% angry because these values are so important to me and this person has violated my values. So that's very helpful to us as individuals when we do our own personal work, but also as therapists. Because if we think that we're going to get that person down to 0% anger and they're starting at 100%, that's really, you know, making our work more difficult. And yet this allows the person to acknowledge, I don't think 0% is what I'm aiming for here. And then it just takes a lot of the pressure off. So that's what I've experienced. I think I may be about to eat into Robyn's time, and I don't want to do that, but thank you all. You have been incredibly helpful, and I've enjoyed getting to know all of you, and I really look forward to hearing your written feedback. Thank you so much for participating and listening.
Thank you so much, Bridget, for making space for our personal work with positive reframing and tying it into how that's really important to offer to our clients too, to help them work through resistance and to set that goal. And I think that goal, I loved how you worded it, just allows you to honor yourself. There's dignity in those feelings, and that seems to just open people to move forward with the work there. Okay, so without further ado, we have our second presentation from Robyn Blake-Mortimer, all the way from Australia as well. And she will be sharing with us a couple of tools to help to change comfort eating, if you relate to that, but also other habits. It can really generalize too. So I'm really excited to hear what Robyn has to share with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tyann. I'm just going to start my screen share and go to just a moment. I'm hoping you can see my screen there. I'm really, really happy to be able to be here. And also I benefited from Bridget's presentation because I had a problem with the time zones coming from Australia, and then a problem with getting my video showing. And it was like, what's the benefit of anxiety? Hey, it shows I really care. I really want to make sure I don't let any of you guys down. And I really want to share these tools with you because they've been so helpful for me in helping me really change a whole lot about my life. So a quick introduction to who I am. And I feel like I'm being very vulnerable in this because at the end of the day, all we've got to offer is ourselves as therapists. So we're not getting the sort of photoshopped version. So I came to TEAM-CBT later in my career. I've got information about a psychologist in Australia. I'm a certified Gottman method couples therapist, and I've done a lot of hypnotherapy training, and I'm a level 4 TEAM-CBT therapist. So I've got a whole broad range of tools and techniques, and I love the way that TEAM helps me stay organised. It's so helpful to have that value and that framework. So instead of thinking, oh, what do I do now? Or that would be creative, or that would be fun, I know this is the next thing to do. This makes sense. And sorry, I'm just moving this across. So here is true and open showing. This is the before photos of myself when I actually was starting to find that my weight was really getting out of hand, and I couldn't hide from the problem forever. And for me, it wasn't about making myself look beautiful. I felt like I was fairly comfortable with who I was. It was more about health. And so on the 1st of January this year, I found out I was weighing 77.6 kilos, which in American language is 172 pounds, which is really not healthy for me. And so when it came to issues around having photos taken, I would try to hide myself and position myself behind other people, just because I was starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable with what was going on. But the real wake-up call came for me when I was in the doctor's office, and there was high blood pressure, there was ongoing chronic pain, there was high cholesterol readings. And it was suddenly this light bulb moment of, hey, maybe I should actually apply my TEAM skills to my weight loss program, and this really bad habit that I'd developed of comfort eating and comfort drinking. And so this was the situation of living alone. My husband is in New York. We'd been separated by the pandemic, and then it was a whole heap of negotiation about what we were going to do. And instead of addressing some of my feelings, I was actually just eating them down and squashing them down. And that was all right, I thought, until it really wasn't all right anymore, because I really did not want to end up becoming a burden to my children. And so this is the sense of, for everybody, there comes a light bulb moment when you think, oh, okay, something needs to change here. And it's up to you when that light bulb moment might happen, and it will be different for everybody. So this is my after photo, which you'll notice I'm not actually hiding behind the panda bear anymore. I feel really good about having lost the 15 kilos and dropped the 3 dress sizes, and I can actually run around and keep up with my grandchildren. And so this makes me feel like a new person, despite all of the negative thoughts I had in my head that I'm too old, it's hopeless, you'll only take the weight off and you will put it back on again. And there was this other really strong one that was, you know, my husband should just love me the way I am, and it doesn't matter how fat I get. He should just love me anyway. And if he doesn't, then I'm not going to lose weight. I'll just get fatter and fatter, and that will show him. Sounds a bit childish, doesn't it? But that was a little bit what was going on in my mind that I hadn't really worked out until I'd done the triple paradox about what were my values that were keeping me doing this behaviour. What was going on for me? So here's the question: what steps did I take? And I've got a circular staircase here. Because when it comes to dealing with any habit or any addiction, we go around and around a circular stairwell, or almost like unraveling the layers of an onion. And it's like you go back and revisit some of the same issues, but you do it in a different way. So what I am hoping for all of us today is that you're going to have the invitation to come with me and start your own healing journey regarding some habit or some addiction. And I know the tools that can help if you decide that you want to do that work with me. And I can't see everybody, but I'd just like you to think about whether you'd like to be involved in this today. And we have got the standard TEAM-CBT format here. And because this is going to be more like group therapy almost, rather than just psychoeducation, I'm not going to be able to give all of you individual empathy and hear your individual stories, but I'm sure they are important, and I'm sure we've all got really interesting, really valid reasons about what has brought each of us to where we are today. And I'm sure all of us have got really good reasons to hang on and to do some of those habits that have actually possibly not really helping you. So let us begin. I think before we start at all, there needs to be this really deep acknowledgement of how heavy the burden is that all of us carry as therapists in this profession. We're humans, we're not machines. We sit and we listen and bear witness to stories of intense grief and loss, real compulsions and despair, and this sometimes triggers our own frailties and our own vulnerabilities. So it's totally, totally understandable that many of us will have experienced challenges in different areas, not all with habits and addictions, but we will all have had our own challenges. And that is one of the things that is special. So step one, self-reflection. It's almost like you've got to hold the mirror up to yourself and ask, how am I really going? Is something holding me back? Or would I like to change any of my habits? Or are some of my secret little pleasures starting to exercise a bit more control over me than I would care to admit? And this is what I started to find with myself, that, yeah, I was starting to eat more and more, of think that I was looking forward to a Friday night at the end of a working day week to go to the bottle shop. We have bottle shops, you have liquor stores, buy a bottle and bring it home and make that last the next 3 days, which really was breaking the rules that I'd set myself about what was reasonable and sensible and responsible drinking. And it wasn't working for helping me be healthy. So we have to bring ourselves to look what's going on, and do we want to keep on pretending there isn't a problem? Now, and Tyann, I've actually taken this slide from you, and it looks like I'm going to have to do animation here because it's come up blank. That's interesting. For just a moment.
As you click on it, it should show up, Robyn.
Oh, okay. So here are a beautiful lot of information about some of the chemical or substance addictions or uses that could be there. Because I want us to be aware it's not only the standard ones of alcohol or benzos or marijuana that could be going on. There are things also that I've added, just even like caffeine. Certainly when I was talking to people in Seattle, there's a lot of people who are really addicted to caffeine because that's the caffeine capital. And then it's also around behaviours, procrastination, a bit of gambling, shopping. I don't know how many people did a lot more online shopping during the pandemic. The social media, relationships or codependency, or that feeling of falling in love with one and then the next, some of the cutting, porn or sex, video games. There's a whole gamut of really strong habits that can be unhelpful and can really be holding you back. And some of them are mild, and I do want to actually talk at this stage that the DSM-5 doesn't talk substance abuse disorder anymore. It's substance use disorder, and it's on a continuum of mild to hazardous. So you could be anywhere along the continuum of using things a little bit and it's not really dangerous, but it could get worse, or you could be moving towards the other end. It's a continuum in that way, and it's going to be helpful to learn some skills if you want to be able to pull yourself back from any of these. So now I have a quick survey, and Tyan's going to help me with this because this is important for us to do this looking at ourselves. So I have never struggled with any unwanted habits or addictions. This is just true or false. I would like help in changing one habit. And true or false, I feel a bit guilty or embarrassed about having this habit. It'll be really interesting to see these results coming in, and it's all anonymous. Mm. So I've just submitted my own poll. I'm really looking forward to seeing other people's results here. Okay, wow. So under the habits, 9% have never ever struggled with any unwanted habit or addictions. That means 91% of us have struggled at some time in our lives. And we're talking to a group of therapists. Isn't that amazing? And 85% of us are saying, I would like help in managing one habit. And 85% of us are saying that I feel a bit guilty and or embarrassed about having this habit. So maybe that's something that has given us a bit more information that you're not alone in this situation. You are not the only person who has ever had any of this kind of struggle or a habit, and it makes us human. So this particular technique of the survey technique is a really useful one to normalize what is going on and to reduce the feelings of embarrassment or shame that so often goes with having habits and having these unwanted addictions. So let's move. It went the wrong way. I do apologise. Steering technology is my absolute weakness, and I'm moving ahead on that. So this is what I would like us to share now, and I've written in phonetics. This is kintsugi, the beautiful Japanese art of taking precious metals to bring together broken objects and make them even more beautiful. And so you've got this bowl that when it gets broken, normally in Western tradition, if something is broken, you throw it out. In this tradition, you painstakingly repair it using gold, enamel, and other precious objects. And that actually means that the scars or the brokenness becomes so much more part of the inherent beauty of the object. And I like to think about that as what we're doing as therapists. This is the metaphor that helps me think about who wants to go and talk to the therapists who's got their life totally together, who's got no problems at all, and who's never had a moment of despair or anxiety or depression. No, I don't want to talk to somebody like that. I want to talk to a human being. And this also ties in, I think, very much with the work of Brené Brown, with let's embrace your own imperfection. And I forgot to put this on my slides, so I'm embracing my own imperfection, the gifts of imperfection, that out of our brokenness and our frailty and our vulnerability can really become our absolute strength in moving ahead. So let's keep moving ahead. And I do want to point out with this, motivation is absolutely everything. And that, of course, it's difficult to make changes. And don't skip the triple paradox to rush to techniques, because normally if you are stuck, it's usually because not enough has been done to honour the reasons to stay the same. And I was thinking that this builds a bit on what Bridget was talking about, the positive reframe. And I know Tyann was sending out some pre-course preparation of let's do a positive reframe of your particular habit there. And it's like, what are the benefits it gives me? What are the costs of giving it up? And what are the beautiful values that it really does show about who you are? When you do that triple paradox, you honor your resistance, and then it becomes like, yeah, that makes sense. And I still need to change that habit. I can't keep on running away from my feelings, squashing down some of my anger or squashing down some of my sadness. I've got to actually stop medicating and address the issues underneath. And I'm just noticing there's a chat up the top, and it looks like we're moving ahead okay. And then there's this really important thing that all of us have to somehow learn to get more of this very Zen approach of accepting and respecting other people's choices. So accepting your own choice about maybe this isn't the right time for you to work on your habit at the moment. Maybe you want to keep on doing your online shopping frequently, or you want to keep on doing the gambling because it's not hurting anybody and you know your limit. And if that's what you're truly believing at this stage, that is perfectly okay, because the minute you get locked into sort of trying to push your clients, or I get locked into trying to say, hey, I've done this, you need to do it too, then we're going to lose each other. So I want you to have a sense of control and acceptance that progress is rarely in a straight line. Remembering the circular stairwell, you might go around and around a number of times before you feel ready to make some of these changes. And I absolutely do not want to rush anybody. And if you do want to make these changes, I'm kind of excited about the very next tool that we're going to do. Which this first one is called the Devil's Advocate. And this is a motivational and role-playing tool. And it helps you prepare for whenever the urges seem irresistible. Because the issue with any habit and any situation is you will have a part of your brain saying, hey, oh, you need this, come and get this. And it's like you have a little angel sitting on one shoulder and a little devil sitting on the other. I like to think of the Homer Simpson cartoons. And you've got the angel saying, come on, be good, resist, you'll feel so much better, you'll be fine. You've got the little devil saying, hey, this is going to be so much fun, go on, do it. You don't want to be a spoil sport. And so if you know that this is going to happen, and it will happen, this technique helps you to prepare. So before we do the exercise, I want you to have a think about a situation where you are likely to feel tempted, and we're going to do some pre-testing because I've got to love some testing. That's annoying. Okay, so it's on a scale of 0 to 100. Before we've done this particular method, what is your motivation to change? 100 means you're totally 100% committed to changing. And 0 means not at all, you couldn't care less. Just write that down somewhere. Or you could actually, how about we pop that in the chat, everybody? I'd love to read the chat. Because the motivation to change 0 to 100. Oh, good, I can see messages coming in. 80, 10%, 60, 70, 65, 90, 50. Yeah, makes sense. Some of this is sitting on the fence. 75, 20. Yeah. So this is really interesting where people are at different levels of thinking, how much motivation have we got to change? So let's look at what we can do. The need. What we're going to do next is take some of the tempting thoughts from your habits and addictions log. This is another tool there. And the therapist, which in this case will be me, will take on the voice of the tempting thought or the craving. And all of you guys are going to be the voice of the self-loving and self-controlled little angel who is going to encourage good choices. So I'm just going to go talk through my example so you're aware of what's going on. And this is when I made the mistake of going up to the local shopping centre before I had eaten lunch. So I thought I'll just go up there and buy some stuff that I need to be organised. And on the way back, I had to go past the bakery. Now, for me, that was the bad situation. And I had the little devil, the tempting thought saying, oh, it would be so good to have a treat now. Those pastries look and smell so good. I do have a sweet tooth. And then it was things like, you deserve a treat. You've been so good up to now. And you can't be expected to deprive yourself forever. One little bun or drink or look won't hurt. And then you don't want to be an uptight party pooper. So those were my tempting thoughts that came up. I wonder if you people would like to, just for starters, write some of the ways that you could talk back to those tempting thoughts. Because I want you to get into the habit of knowing what can you say back to those thoughts. Imagine that you were me. Type them in the chat. I like this. It's going to feel good now, but you'll feel bad later. Absolutely. What you really deserve is to be healthy. I like that one. Oh, I know people that have fun in exciting and daring ways, and they don't give in to things like this. Nothing tastes as good as it feels to be well. These are comments that are very helpful, and they're similar to what I said. You are strong and you can reach your goals. And I also said to myself, walk on by, Robyn, just walk on by. You don't need it. You don't need it. It's more important to be healthy. Yeah, you can do this. Keep going. Sometimes the little angel on your shoulder comes up with some cheerleading and some gentle support in that way. Feeling healthy and playing with my grandchildren is more satisfying to me. Absolutely. You know, it's so good to be able to bend over and do up your shoelaces without feeling a little bit pooped out trying to reach over the belly in the way. So you really don't want to give in to those things. This is what I'm telling myself more and more often. So this was me. Let's look at this situation. And I want you to type, all of you, 1 to 3 of the craving thoughts that you've got in the box, in the chat box. So I really would like to find out, and it's not all just going to be about food, it can be about, I just need to check my messages. It could be, I need to keep shopping, or I need to just place that next bet before it's too late. Type 1 to 3 of the craving thoughts in the chat box, and then I'm going to have a go at playing the really tempting devil, and you're going to have a go at this. I've got one question. What kind of craving would there be for procrastination? I think the craving will be, oh, you don't really need to do that now. You can do it later. So it's not so much a craving, it's more of a thought that's interfering with getting on with the task in hand. Or I like the way somebody's there screaming, I can have what I want. Okay, so if we do procrastination, I'm going to play the tempting person, and I'm going to be saying what some of these things are there. And I'm going to wonder if somebody would like to volunteer to actually be the person with procrastination, to have a go at answering back. If there could be a show of hands of who would like to. And if not, that's fine. We can all just type it in the chat, because I don't want to put anyone on the spot here. Okay. So, Ellen, were you volunteering? Would you like to just unmute yourself?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted that you've decided to work on this with me. So Ellen, is yours about, we're going to do this about procrastination?
Sure, that sounds fine.
Okay. So, Ellen, you know about this whole procrastination stuff. What is it that you're procrastinating about? Imagine.
Yeah. Oh, there's just so many things to get done in the day. My notes, making dinner, buying food, and yeah, so many things to do.
So, Ellen, I can see you've got a really good point there. There's so many things you've got to do, and there are so many other things that you could just do those notes later, because clearly, you know, you're not in the mood to do the notes now. Why would you want to do the notes now? Why don't you just sit back and relax? You deserve to have some time out, Ellen. You really do.
Well, I do think you're right, and I'm so glad that you understand that, because most people tell me I need to get it done every day. And my husband is always pestering me, gee, when's dinner? When are we going to have dinner? And some days I just don't feel like it.
Oh, well, you know what, sister, when you don't feel like it, you really don't need to do it. So why don't you just look after yourself, and you can put this off, and you don't need to do this at all. Okay, who won?
You won.
Yeah, so the tempting thought one, and I'm so glad we've had this example, because what this has done is really demonstrate some of the dangers that happen when we jump in to do a live demonstration straight to a method without having done a lot more clarification about what the true agenda is and what we're hoping to achieve. And so it's like, I have to accept this is what you want to do. You want to continue to procrastinate. And it's actually really nice for you to have heard that somebody understood or cared about not telling you what to do.
Absolutely. But I was getting twinges of guilt, because after you said that, it was, yeah, but came up. Yeah, but it would be so nice to have dinner with my husband. And yes, but it would be so nice to be able to watch the news or watch something relaxing, knowing that my notes have been done. So as soon as you said that, I felt that, come up.
So what we're having here is I'm just going to stop screen sharing for a moment. What we're having here is this beautiful encapsulation of what often happens in the therapy room, Ellen, where you have to be ready to adjust and pivot and change with what is going on. And you're describing exactly what happens with paradoxical invitations, which we did not do. That by me actually arguing and pushing to, let's do the procrastination, don't change, stay the same, why would you want to change? By feeling like you're hearing that, suddenly you're saying, but I really do need to change. It would be nice to have dinner with my husband. It would be helpful. So you became the voice of change instead of me pushing you to become that way. So let's imagine now that we have done this and you are, what's your motivation to beat this problem with procrastination about preparing dinner or doing your, which one will it be? Preparing dinner or doing your notes? Let's just pick one.
Yeah. Let's do doing my notes.
Okay. So what's your motivation to get on with that and get it done?
Then I don't have to think about it in the evening, and I'll start off my following day with a fresh mind.
Okay. And I'm wondering, if you were to do a score from 0 to 100, how strong is your motivation to do that now?
I would say it's 90%.
Wow, 90% is really high. So I just want to test this out now. Now we're going to go into the devil's advocate, and I'm going to actually play the part of your brain that's going to come up and encourage you to not do it. All right. So at the end of this workshop, when you could be doing your notes, you know, I'm going to be telling you some of the things that might pop into your head to try to convince you to just go and have a bit of fun instead. So, and you're going to play the part of your brain that is wise and compassionate and really sensible about what you need to do. Does that make sense to you, Ellen? Beautiful, beautiful. So, you know, Ellen, doing those notes is so time consuming and it's so tedious and so boring. And I really don't think you want to do that. Surely you could just go and have a nice dinner with your husband instead. That would be so much more fun, and you deserve that. You really do.
Well, it certainly is tempting the way you present that. However, if I don't do my notes, I'm going to be thinking about them during dinner and maybe not fully enjoying my dinner as a result. And then I'll be thinking about it through the night, and I may not sleep as well because I'll be thinking, oh, golly, I have all these notes to do tomorrow and I really have a busy day. So if I were to take the few minutes, maybe the half an hour to finish my notes, it would benefit me in oh so many ways. So I think I'm going to do the notes.
Who won?
I did.
Absolutely. Now, this is the how you do the devil's advocate technique. And then it's like, what is your motivation now to do the notes? What is your motivation to resist the urges? Beforehand, you had it at one level. What is your motivation now?
100.
From 0 to 100. 100. Success! Success! This is, gotta love this when it works. You've gotta love it. Thank you, Tyann. I mean, doing live work can often be a little bit tricky, but the other message I want us all to know is that if you make a mistake, that's fine. You get ready to pivot, you go back about what you'd forgotten, and you just fix it up. So fantastic, Ellen. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
I'm going to start. Thank you. Happy doing your notes. Now we're going to share the screen again. Okay, so that was our demonstration, and it's so interesting when I look at this now, and even with my sweet tooth, I look at that sort of smiley cake and I just think, ooh, that could make my cholesterol go bad. It's all in what you say to yourself. When you are doing the devil's advocate, do not ever swap roles and you try to demonstrate what to say to be the voice of change. You want the other person to be the voice of change. So for all of the people here today, you can have practice at writing down for yourself how you would respond to your own tempting thoughts and push back, so that then you're going to be prepared. So that now, whenever I walk past that bakery, I just have these ideas in my head of, no, Robyn, you deserve better. Short-term pleasure, it's not worth it. And I've got a script in my head I can play. And that's what I want you guys to be able to have for whatever the habit might be. So that's the devil's advocate. I really am thinking that I'd love to jump to the future self, if that's possible, because if there are questions, we'll try to do a bit of this at the end, but let's jump to the future self, because these are some of the other techniques. Now, this was developed when I actually met Professor Mark Jensen, who's the president of the International Society of Hypnosis, and he knows how to use hypnosis to manage chronic pain and help patients to meet their health goals. And I was at a conference, and I have a lot of friends who do clinical hypnosis in Australia and have done a lot of training in that area. And it was good to be able to get together with people who I knew, and we were having a good time. And I kept on watching this man who just did not drink much. And he kept on saying no, no, no to all of the bits of food or what have you that were coming. And he looked totally happy and content. And my friends said he used to be this really, really big guy, and he'd actually gone on a weight loss program. And I thought, wow, how did he do it? And he said that every time he made the choice to say no to the cocktail or no to the fatty snack or whatever it was, he would imagine his future self looking him in the eye and saying, thank you for looking after me. Good job. So it was like that sense of, wow, his future self was grateful for the choices he was making there. At that time, I thought, well, that's fine for him. I couldn't do that. But then I decided, when I've done more of the teamwork, actually, I can do that. So if you would like, let's have a go at imagining a desired future you. And I want you to just take some deep breaths, and we've got plenty of time to think about this. And I'm not sure if you would be a particular weight, if you would be wearing flattering clothes, if you would be sober and really content, having found different ways to celebrate. Or are you engaged in positive activities instead of scrolling through your phone or doing the online shopping or secretly trying to play on these little video games or check out particular websites? Are you kind of engaged in positive activities? Just take a little bit of time to think about what your future self could be like. And we can imagine this. Now, not everybody can visualize. or see things almost like it's in a movie, and that's okay because it can still work. But I could not possibly imagine what I might look like when I would lose the weight, but I was able to call to mind a desired number that I wanted to see on the bathroom scales, or I could actually hang up particular items of clothing that I wanted to be able to fit into. I could do that, or I could actually just imagine the taste of healthy, crunchy salad and that sense of satisfaction that I get that way, or the sense of satisfaction of waking up feeling really clear-headed without any headaches at all. So there are different ways that you can experience these positive new future you. You can imagine the scene as if you were there. What do you feel? What do you hear? Maybe what do you smell? Maybe you're out going for an early morning run on the beach and you can smell the salty air. Maybe you can taste something. Just enjoy that. And so, as we're getting into this together, and it's entirely up to you if you want to go here, and if you don't want to imagine, that's fine too. You can think about this as what you maybe would use with other people. I want you to imagine that you're at an important birthday or celebration 5 to 10 years from now. And it might be easier if you do this with your eyes closed. You're surrounded by people who love you. And you might see yourself looking really healthy and incredibly happy, drinking sparkling water. Speeches are given. And you hear your friends talk about how they are so pleased, so thrilled to be present with you on that special day. They also say how proud they are that you changed your life around 5 to 10 years ago. Somehow you just returned from a free webinar in 2022, really, really motivated to stop the smoking or the drinking or being on your phone all the time or procrastinating, putting off those notes. You just decided to get it done. And it worked. They become emotional as they talk about how much it means to them to get their parent or their friend back. And you stand tall and you feel so pleased with the outcome you have achieved. And you think back about all the wise choices you made to achieve this success. All the times you focused on long-term benefits rather than a quick fix or a sugar high or easy numbing with the pokies or your phone or the drugs. As they say in the car ads, what a feeling. Whoa. Take a deep breath and let that lovely feeling spread through your entire body. And I also want you to take a minute of clock time. And that will seem like all the time in the world to listen to any of the words of wisdom that your future self wants to share with you. Just take that minute now. That's the way. It's amazing to get in touch with the wisdom that you already carry in you, and to be able to get that support and that encouragement from your future self. It may not be that your future self comes up after every decision and gives you a pat on the back and says thank you. But there will be other ways that your future self will be able to thank you for the wise choices that you are making today. And it's going to be interesting that you're going to find a key word or a particular image, or maybe a signal, maybe a hand signal, or a position where you hold your hand to help you unlock this really special moment so that it can help you in the here and now to make this possible. It's like you're going to have that key word or image that when you think about it, it's going to give you back all of the wisdom and the motivation and the sense of success and pride that you've had through this creative visualization. It's going to be locked in there for you to access whenever you need it. That's the way. It's kind of neat that you've got this skill now, this special trick that you can use to help yourself whenever you need. And so now I'm just going to get you to reorient yourself back to the present, back to the here and now, bringing with you all these really good feelings. And you might like to have a little bit of a stretch, like a cat after it's had a lovely little nap and had a really nice time. And here we are. Your future self has spoken. I'd like you to type in the chat, what is your motivation to change now from 0 to 100? And that's also like, what is your confidence that you can change now? I'd love to see some of those in the chat. And I'd also like to have some questions too. Oh, we're going 95, 90, 90, 70, 80, 85, confidence 100, 75, 88. So exciting. So exciting. So I'm just thank you so much for your attention. I have got my email there for you to contact me for more details. And I just thought it would be nice. We've only got a few minutes. I had someone say, you sounded rather hypnotic when you were speaking. That was intentional. But I'm so pleased to see the confidence in your ability to change and motivation to do this work has gone up so high. And this is why I love doing this work. The excitement and the fun and the sense of satisfaction that we can get helping each other and see people change their lives and improve their well-being is better than anything you can get wrapped in sugar or in a bottle. This is life and this is wonderful. Thank you so much. Are there any questions? I might hand it to Diane.
Yeah, what questions do you all have, or any experiences with the future self that you wanted to share with the group?
Yeah.
Robyn, I love your positivity. And I do hypnosis as well. So I was so aware of what you were doing, and the kindness, and your pacing was marvelous. And you made it positive and doable. So thank you. It's just lovely.
Thank you so much, Ellen. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And I think I don't want people to get hung up on definitions, because mindfulness and hypnosis and visualization and dreams and imagining, they seem to me to all be the same. I wasn't wanting to do formal hypnosis, but I wanted to just invite you to imagine the positivity of how it could be, instead of being caught up in the negative that goes on so much. And this is it's been such a delight to work with you. I'll do the stopping the share now. And I would recommend that you consolidate the work on the future self by maybe writing about it, to summarize it, writing a script for it. I'm going to share these slides with Diane, and she will share the recording. And if you would like to listen to the recording, have that on your phone, and then you can actually use that when you like. I've got someone saying, I feel less overwhelmed and ashamed getting feedback from my future self. Yeah, I didn't totally help with my original habit, but did make me think about a different difficult image in my life. Yeah, and that's what I like about it. You're the ones in charge. I'm not going to say you must think about this and you must do this and be very prescriptive. I want to do it that you're the ones who are the experts on your life. You can choose to steer where you want to go. And I hope you enjoy the recordings, and thank you so much for being such a wonderful, involved, supportive audience. And I hope you find a way to continue to grow and enjoy your own vulnerability and your own fragility, which actually can be your strength and what makes you so approachable as therapists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robyn, for all of your hard work and your presentation. That future self tool is pretty powerful for me, because I think it connects us with what matters.
Yeah. Because
we're connecting with the form of ourself in the future and our values. And there's something about changing habits where when it's tied to a carrot that drives us towards change, versus like just a punishing, like you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. That's like change through the stick is not as effective as change through a carrot. And so I think your
Exactly.
future self work just felt really powerful and motivating and connecting with the values part. So yeah, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
that. And thank you everyone else for attending as well. I will definitely send out a recording of that, and we appreciate your feedback. Right now, I'm just going to send you a feedback form in the chat, and we appreciate any specific feedback that you have for both of our presenters today, both Bridget and Robyn.
Thank you.
I'm just pulling up the chat here, and thank you so much for your time. Have a great rest of your week here.
Thank you.